May the face of the Lord shine on you. May He shower His blessing on all that you do. May you never know anguish, sorrow, or strife. Dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of your life.
Howdy, I'm Sue Ellen Jackson, and this is Aware Central Texas, Effects of Child Abuse and Neglect. We're going to be talking about something kind of intense for the next few minutes, but not without hope. We're going to be talking about shame and how to release shame. So I hope you'll stay with us. It's going to be an interesting discussion, and hopefully if you are someone that is bearing shame, that it will help you begin to believe that you can release that, because you can. I have with me Karen. Karen, help me pronounce your last name correctly.
Wistrand.
Wistrand. I always want to say Wistrand.
Yes, Wistrand.
But welcome. And Karen, you're a very special person to me because you are the executive director of a thing called Hope Pregnancy.
Yes.
And welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you asking me.
You know, Karen and I had the privilege of meeting each other last night. We knew each other before, but we were going to a dinner that we had to attend, and we sat together and we talked about shame. And we're going to share with you some of the things that we know about shame, and hopefully it will lift you. And if you're a person that has that shame, hopefully you'll be able to release it.
Yes.
You know, understanding shame is critical, and with you working with these darling people that come in and now they're pregnant and they don't know what to do about it, you see shame a lot. But before we get into that, let's talk about what your agency does, the wonderful thing that you do, because shame walks in your door every day.
Every day.
Every
That's
day.
right. Hope Pregnancy Centers are in Central Texas. We have 4 centers, and 1 in Temple, 2 in Killeen, 1 in Copper's Cove. We're a Christian ministry, nonprofit, and basically our whole goal is to minister to women and families, to be available to offer free pregnancy tests, free ultrasounds, offer whatever kind of support we can to them, maternity clothes, baby clothes, diapers, parenting classes. We also do post-abortion counseling. And speaking of shame, there's a lot of shame connected with that.
Oh my
but
goodness,
also
yeah.
because of teen pregnancy, and not just teens, but a lot of folks in their 20s, 30s will come, and because of whatever their situation, they feel a shame, especially if it's if they're having sex outside of marriage.
Right, and because we have a lot of, in our community, we have a lot of military families, and if the young husband gets deployed or and he comes back and the wife is pregnant, or before he comes back, now you've got a real situation on your hand.
Exactly. We see those. We see those. And more. We see folks who have grown up in a Christian home. They attend church regularly, and for them to be pregnant and exposes, many of them, it exposes their sexual activity outside of marriage, and so the shame is right there.
Shame.
So yes, we deal with a lot of guilt and shame.
Thank you for what you're doing, because I think, and I know you agree with me, that I'm not judging people, but when you think about abortion, that's the ultimate child abuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It is.
What does shame look like? What does it look like?
It has different faces. Shame has different faces. When someone walks into one of our centers, it may be someone who is appears very confident and maybe cocky, and they may have a wall up and just don't want to talk. So they may not express it to you. Or it may be someone who is just hanging their head down low, and you can tell that they have a very low self-esteem. Sometimes you see it through, for instance, if they have been abused or mistreated, neglected, then they may be looking for love in all the wrong places, you know, and so it may look like someone who has multiple partners. As I expressed earlier, it could be someone who goes to church regularly, but they didn't want people to know that they had been sexually active.
It so hurts me to know that, but I know it's true.
It is true, yeah. Because when a lot of times we as Christians can be very judgmental of behaviors, and like when you find out someone has been sexually promiscuous, even if it's one time and then become pregnant, then that person, sometimes they could be very pro-life, and yet they're so ashamed of their behavior and what people will think or what their parents may think that they may consider abortion.
And that's just so sad. It's so sad.
Yes, it's very sad. And oftentimes they don't understand the consequences of abortion, so they think, well, I don't believe in this, but it's the only thing that I can do, because they don't see that there are other options, and they don't, it doesn't fit with their plan or their parents' plan or their, sometimes their husband's plan. And so yeah, there's an insecurity there, there's fear there. You see a lot of fear walking in our doors. And and oftentimes they're wanting to keep it a secret, so to keep the face of confidence, or keep a face of purity, or whatever the case may be, because they're ashamed of many of the choices they've made.
You know, I think fear and shame must run hand in hand, because if people can have those walls of shame penetrated, then the brokenness oozes out. It's like a boiling teapot that it spills over.
Yes.
And it just comes out. But then once it comes out, it's not there.
That's right.
You know, and why
it's not a secret anymore.
Yeah.
Once it's out, it's not a secret anymore.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the fear. I don't know. I just, it really hurts my heart to think about churches and the pressures that they both put on themselves as individuals in churches, church members, and their children. So if you're in leadership in a church and you have a child that is a teenager and turns up pregnant, you know, not only are you going to maybe not make a good judgment for that child and encourage them to just make it go away and compromise your whole belief system, but if it does come out, also you run the risk of being judged and ostracized by the church. And you know,
that's a good point. There so often it doesn't just affect that girl or woman, as the case may be, but it affects other people, and so sometimes it is the parents who are pressuring a child or a teenager or young woman to get an abortion. And
so sad. It really is.
And they feel, and because the teen or young woman feels like they're under the authority of their parents, they don't want to say no.
Right. So they'll do it anyway.
So they do it, yes. And sometimes they'll resist, but eventually give in for whatever reason. Sometimes the parents will threaten the children, you know, or teens, young adults.
It's something that you carry with you for a long, long time, but you don't have to. Karen, we've run out of time. We could talk about this forever, I know.
Well, and what we didn't say was the hope. And Hope Pregnancy Centers offers choices and options and support and encouragement and the love of Christ.
Yes.
And when there's hope, it totally changes their perspective.
Yes, by his stripes we are healed.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed talking to you last night. I'm enjoying having you here with us today, and I look forward to future conversations. And if you have an issue with pregnancy and you're contemplating abortion, please rethink that. Contact the Hope Pregnancy Centers. They will love you. They will give you good counsel. They'll help you get back on your feet, and just always remember there is hope. So thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
We're going to hear from a lady who wants to encourage us to move away from the shame.
I'm going to start with this scripture in Psalms 3:3. But thou, O Lord, art a shield for me, my glory, and the lifter up of my head. And that scripture is the one that helped me to release the shame of being abused as a little girl and then going through abuse as a married woman. God let me know that I'm worth something and that I don't have to walk around with my head held down because I didn't have no self-esteem about myself. And I thank God for that scripture because now he's giving me God esteem. And with my God esteem, nobody can take that from me. When I didn't have no self-esteem, then people could continue to beat me down. But now with God giving me God esteem, he's the one that continues to lift my head up. He's the one that lets me know that I don't have to be ashamed of the way that I was treated because Jesus was abused for me, and that I can go through whatever he has me to go through. Because it's not for myself, it's going through to help somebody else to go through like he did for me. And as long as you hold on to the shame of the way that you've been treated, you'll never get no help. You have to let somebody know what you've been through, what you're going through, so that you can get free from it. And as long as you hold on to the shame, you'll always be bound by that. It was hard for me to let go of the shame because I was afraid. I was afraid of how people would look at me. I was afraid of what people would think about me. When I finally realized that a lot of people are abused and they're ashamed because it depends on who the person is and who you are. And fear will keep you from telling people what you're going through. And fear will have you to hold on to the shame because you feel like people are going to judge you. You know, because I'm not sure if I ever judged an abused woman, but I did think that, why can't she just leave? You know, or why does she put up with that? And then when I got in that situation, I understand because of fear. Fear will make you do things that you normally would not do. So that's why a lot of people don't release it, because they're afraid of what people are going to think about them, what people are going to say about them. And yeah, people will talk. People are going to talk about you. When you come out and let people know what you've been through, they will talk about you. Some going to talk good, some going to talk bad. But you just have to ask God to give you the courage and the strength to go on anyway.
Thank you, Rhonda. Thank you for sharing that. We have another wonderful guest with us. Her name is Alice Taylor. And Alice, you work with incarcerated women. We are talking about shame. We're exploring what it looks like, how it shows up, but most importantly, if you're somebody that feels shame, we want to encourage you to know that you do not have to wear that, mantle of heaviness that goes with you everywhere you are and every waking moment. You can release that. And that's why you're here, Alice. Thank you for being here. I have so been looking forward to hearing your thoughts and your input on the horrible thing that we call shame and what it does to people, and how we can begin to move away from that. So you're working with incarcerated women. What does shame look like in your world?
I think we could interchange the word shame with self-hatred.
Wow. Yeah.
That the way I define shame, guilt is something that when we're aware that we've done something wrong, but shame says we are something wrong. That our very being, we are wrong.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of women or kids will grow up in environments where if they're given the message that something is wrong with them, and when they're abused, they don't have a sense of objectivity. They don't have any idea to look outside themselves, so they turn it inward. I've done something to create this, to make this happen.
Right.
And so they grow up feeling that they are wrong.
Just
and
everything wrong.
Everything that they inside themselves, something is actually wrong. And that's the shame that they wear.
It's like, this is who I am. I'm a bad person. I do wrong things. And so therefore, the thought of being able to do anything decent or responsible or good is not in their realm of their box of skills.
Right. And some children will turn to drugs and alcohol very, very young. 11, 12, 13, self-medicating.
Yeah.
Just not to feel the shame, the self-hatred that they feel for themselves.
Wow. Oh, that is just really something to think about, isn't it?
It is.
You know, I will tell you that I grew up in a really I have wonderful childhood memories, but I grew up with a sense of shame, and I never really understood that. What was that? There was a dark underlining. I never was really confronted with it, but I felt it. And it was only after my mother passed away and I was having tea with my aunt, who by then was in her 80s, she unfolded a horrific story of child abuse, child incest, child neglect from my grandparents' generation. So my parents did a really good job of protecting me from all of that, but that mantle of shame, that legacy came with, and I never really understood why. But the instant she told me that story, it was like, oh my God, thank you, I understand now. I don't own that. Now it makes sense to me. And so I know people can move away from it. What happens when you see a person that is really just totally consumed by shame and self-hatred? How do you bring them through a process to empower them to move away from that?
A lot of the times it's just hearing their stories and just acknowledging their pain. Yeah. And they say it out loud, and you look at them and you say, I'm just so sorry that happened to you. Right. I'm so sorry that you were violated like this. And assuring them that it wasn't their fault. A lot of times they'll just carry it as something I did. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard that, and they will still love the abuser, right. Despite all the things that have happened to them. But children, they can't face the evil of it, and so they will choose to keep loving the person who actually harms them. But I think
do you think that's a bad thing? I don't.
It's survival. It helps them survive and get through. Yeah. But of course, again, I work with some of the most damaged, and some of it is so twisted, right, that it's very difficult to untwist it, right, and to get a more objective perspective. If they hear another woman's story, they can say, ooh, what a horrible person and what a horrible thing happened to you. But when it comes to their own, it's very difficult then to get to that process of actually saying that was a bad thing that happened to me. It's something I didn't deserve. And it was wrong that this person did it to me. That's whenever things start changing. Wow. But it's a long, slow process to be able to get to that point. I'm a big fan of group therapy because they're talking with each other, and they can commiserate with one another and support one another and say, yeah, that was wrong. That was wrong that happened to you. And then you start seeing this change. Maybe I'm not wrong inside. Maybe I wasn't born wrong. Maybe I didn't cause this. And that's when I start seeing some freedom.
When they reach that point, that aha moment, like, oh my gosh, maybe maybe everything that I've ever thought is wrong. Maybe I'm not this evil, bad person.
Right.
What a moment. I mean, do you see those moments when that happens?
I do. I can't say specific stories, but I have seen women come from postures or sleeping all day, just avoiding their pain by staying in their little cubicle and sleeping all day, to actually getting up and smiling and interacting with other women in the facility and going in the day room and participating, and they're completely different. And people will come around and tell them, "What's happened? Well, you're so different. I'm so glad to see you. Glad you're out here." And it's really wonderful. It comes in cycles, though, and anyone who's trying to go through this healing process, enjoy those moments of freedom, but know that there's still more to work on, because
so
it's layers.
2 steps forwards or 1 step forward and 2 steps back?
3 forward, 2 back, however you want to word it, as long as you're moving forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, whenever we're in the healing process, we'll think we're getting somewhere, and something will come and hit us, and we'll think we've not made any progress. But I want to encourage you to realize you have made progress. It feels like you haven't made any. But if you can wade through that, keep pushing forward, keep owning the truth as you have learned it to be now, and just hold on to it.
Right, and find group support maybe.
Absolutely. You can't do it by yourself.
Yeah, that is very cool. Are there any stories, no names, no situations, of a typical person that is just eat up with this and the process that they go through with the healing process, the 2 steps forward and the 1 step back, and then with the final outcome? Is there an example that you are comfortable sharing with us? Or
well, I guess I can share a friend's. I wouldn't want to share any of my clients.
Right.
And a little bit of my own story too, I suppose. I'm not coming from a home or a childhood of abuse, as far as sexual abuse, overt kind of thing. But I think just growing up female, there's a lot of negative connotations, even with just being female. You throw like a girl, and and I actually threw pretty well. So what's wrong with me? I was an athlete, and so just getting the negative connotations of just being female in and of itself. The healing process, though, is that you grow up in a home where you're not honored for who you are at your very being, and you feel wrong, and you start doing this healing process. And you start, wait, there might be another truth, and you might get glimpses of it. But in general, your life is still kind of stuck and mired in these negative, false beliefs about yourself. But slowly but surely, every day, you may get more experiences of living free. And you hold on to that as much as you can, but things come against you, and you're going to feel like, just not making any progress.
See, I love that. I've never really thought about that, but when you are on that healing journey, to encourage people to hold on to the good days, because it's a journey.
Right. And eventually you will find that you'll be going several days and you realize, wait a minute, I've been doing great, this is fun. Something will happen and you're going to feel like, it's never going to work, it's never going to be right.
I'll never get through
this. And that's a thinking error, is what I love to call it at work.
Right.
And then you recognize, I'm beating myself up with my own thoughts now, and I'm going to correct my thoughts. And now I'm going to recognize that I just wade through this, and I'm going to be back on track. And it's always true. You just get past that moment, and then eventually you're going to have just a handful of bad moments. But it takes, it depends on your level of abuse, but it can take years to actually get there, but to where you're actually feeling like, I can just see the scar now, and I'm strong in this place where my scar is, but I'm no longer wounded by it. And a huge part of this has got to be forgiveness. So many women that I work with are consumed with hatred for what's happened to them, and they're consumed with it. And the one thing I really try to put across is that forgiveness isn't necessarily about the person who harmed you. It's about getting yourself free from the sin against you. And as you forgive, because otherwise you're carrying the sin against you for years.
It leads you up. It's like a cancer.
Yes, and it's weighing you down. And if you can actually come to a point of, I don't need to exact revenge anymore, and I can let it go, then you'll find yourself finally set free. Because God will deal with all of us when we come to that judgment day.
Oh, yeah.
And He will deal with your abuser. And if we can just let it go, revenge is mine, says the Lord.
Yes.
And I'm going to let Him take care of this. I've got to move forward. And you have to choose. It's not a feeling necessarily. You have to choose to forgive. And as you forgive, you will get set free.
A lot to think about.
Much to think about.
So you hear about the possibility that it wasn't your fault, you're not this evil, bad person that you think you are. It's a whole new idea. It opens up a whole new universe for you. And for a few days, you're euphoric, or you're just overjoyed with the possibility that maybe I'm not this person worthy of hate, that maybe I am somebody worthy of love. And so you walk in that, and you take a few steps, and then something happens that sets you back, and then you walk forward a little more, and it sets you back. Generally, how long does it take a person? Well, really, that's a silly question. I already know the answer. Depends on the person.
It does, and the extent of the abuse. You know, some of the women I've worked with, it's intense, the things that have happened to them. And they will never, ever know what it's like to have grown up with Leave It to Beaver, you know, in that kind of a household of safety and security, and mom and dad understand and help you work through your problems and build your self-esteem. And
Alice,
so, but we want it to be whole enough, is the way I like to word it.
Yeah, whole enough. We have run out of time. I can't believe it. I've enjoyed talking with you, and
it's been very fun.
Wish we had more time. If you're a person that feels that you are holding a mantle of shame, there's hope for you. And you can contact Aware Central Texas, and we will get you lined up with whatever resources that you need to begin to walk free of shame. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
May the face of the Lord shine on you. May He shower His blessing on all that you do. May you never know anguish, sorrow, or strife. Dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of your life.